Hey everybody, it's Crystal from Sober Onions podcast. I am here this morning at 6 a.m. my time, but I have my friend Gill here. She's in Boston, and we're going to do a little episode for you. I wanted to talk to Gill about her platform on social media. I met Gill through her amazing social platform. I have to say this because I was just expressing to her that I dove into all of her stuff and I was so impressed and I was so amazed at how many people have been on her show. And so, Jill, I just wanted to have you say hi, and then I'm going to start asking you some questions, and I'm really excited that you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. So you're in Boston and you're from Boston?
Yeah,
Okay.
grew up here and stayed here forever.
Wow. Okay. Very good. So I'm actually I'm from California, but I was in Florida for 22 years. So I'm back in California now, and the weather's so nice and on the beach. I'm very, very blessed. So
Yeah, I'm jealous.
I know, I know, but you get what you pay for. It's so expensive here. It's insane. Gas is $4.60 right now, which is insane. So well, I wanted to talk about you and just kind of describe who you are and what you mean to me. And there's a difference between us. I am brand new to social media with my sobriety. I came into this world per se, mostly as an accountability, but I've always had a business with people, and I've been very social, and I love helping people, and I feel like helping people helps me. And so that was kind of like my accountability slash service to just the people around me, to have something when I'm meeting new people and they're brand new in sobriety. I'm like, hey, check out my podcast because you might relate to it, because I'm pretty raw and I'm going to tell you that I'm brand new. I drank for 18 years. Was a single mom, raised my kids. I haven't talked to my kids. They haven't talked to me. I'm going through all that right now. I'm almost 6 months and like a week and a half. I'm hitting kind of a wall right now, which is hard, but it's so nice to have all these resources, which is new to me as well. And I was introduced to your podcast and your platform on Instagram, and there's so many out there, but I felt like my draw to you was, yeah, how genuine you were. When I was following you or listening to you, I didn't feel like it was this big business where, hey, follow me, and like, this is what I do, this is how I make money. I really felt like you were genuine in my sobriety and wanted me to relate to you, and that's what drew me to you. And so I commend you for that, because I'm sure you get a lot. I see your reviews, and I see how many people have responded to you and said, wow, you're just this amazing person. And it's true, it really is. I personally have really been helped by a couple of the podcasts that you've done, and I follow you on everything you do. So with that, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and how you became sober, how you stay sober, and just a little bit more about you and how you got into being a sober influencer.
Yeah, so thank you for all of that, first of all. So I will be 2 years sober in a couple weeks on November 9th, which is crazy and very exciting. So I drank for 7 years. So I started late and it accelerated quickly. So I didn't drink when I was in high school, none of that, because I was really bullied. So I was never invited to anything. So I was like protected, I guess, from underage drinking. And then when I went to college, after all the bullying, I was like very hesitant to put myself out there. Like I just assumed people wouldn't like me. So I stuck to myself. I studied. I went to school for chemistry. So I was really busy. And I didn't go to any college parties either. And I didn't drink in college at all. My very first drink, though, was when I was 18. and I was on a cruise with my family. We were cruising to Bermuda, and the drinking age is 18. And I was 18, and I had my parents' permission to have a glass of wine. I got it myself. It was legal for me to get it. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But as soon as the alcohol started to affect me, like halfway through the glass, I was overcome with so much shame. I felt like I was the worst person, like I had done something wrong, like I was bad. And I was lecturing my brother. He was with me. My brother was 16 at the time. I was like, don't ever drink. Promise me you'll never do this. This is the worst. And that experience made me not drink at all for years. And it wasn't until I was 22 and in graduate school that I started to drink because I was the only one who didn't drink. And it's a big drinking culture in science. The professors drink with you. There's alcohol, even in the workplace now. There's alcohol on people's desks. There's alcohol. Like I can open the fridge at work, and there might be nothing in the fridge for me to drink or eat, but there's White Claws and beers and all this stuff. So it's a big drinking culture. And after all of the bullying, I was like, no one's gonna like me if I don't like do what they do. Like, why would they want to hang out with me? So I just started ordering what other people would order. And then it took a couple times, but the first time like I got that buzz on, I was like, okay, here we go. This is why people do this. Um, and then it was just a nightmare. After that, it was just a mess. I had no control over how much I drank. I had no understanding even of like how much was too much. So I would just drink and drink and drink. And if I finished my drink and I wasn't drunk in the moment, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can have another one. Not like realizing that, it's delayed.
Yeah.
So I was getting sick all the time, humiliating myself all the time. It was horrible. I was a daily drinker within the year because I drank for stress. Because that's what I learned in grad school. Like when you're stressed, you drink. That's why everybody drinks every day. And I was like, okay, well, I have all the stress. And yeah, and then I started trying to moderate the following year. So my tolerance doubled by that time. And that's when I started to realize like, this is a lot of alcohol, actually. I'm drinking a lot every day. I was making Cosmos in a pint glass, and it was like 80% vodka with like another 15% triple sec and then like a drop of diet cranberry. Like it wasn't a Cosmo. It was like barely even colored.
Yeah.
And and then I started drinking two of those. And that was when I thought like, okay, this is a lot. I was like getting drunk every single day, going to work hungover every single day. It was awful. So I'm like, I'll just moderate. I'll just drink less. Problem solved. But I couldn't moderate. And I tried for 5 years. I tried so hard. I used to research it every day. So I would get drunk and then I would wake up in the middle of the night and hate myself. You're a loser. You're the worst. Why do you always do this? What's wrong with you? Why can't you control yourself? And then I would get up and I would start researching how to moderate your drinking. Why is wine healthy for you? And like all the stupid stuff. And then by the afternoon, I'm already ready to get back to it and drink again. And it was every day like that for years. And then towards the end, I started to have my mental health be affected by it. So I have always struggled with depression and I got really suicidal at the end of my drinking. So those thoughts like, you're such a loser, why can't you control yourself? Those got a lot scarier at the end. And I would force myself to stay awake. When I would wake up like at that 2 or 3 a.m. jolt, I would force myself to stay awake till the morning, thinking about what a loser I am and how I'm the worst and my husband doesn't deserve this and all of these really scary thoughts after that. And that eventually is what made me stop. It took about a year I did like 90 days sober for a while, and then I was like, I'm cured. I can moderate now. I wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
Um, so it was a journey, but the main point is I was very suicidal and I was afraid I was going to do something. And even in all of that craziness and like not being able to think straight, I knew like I didn't actually want that. So I accepted like I can never moderate, and that was it.
What did you do to stop? You said you did the 90 days and then that didn't work, and then because I hear that all the time. I mean, I have friends who, now they go to meetings and I'll say, "How much time do you have?" And they say, "I'm not counting this time." Like, I'm not gonna count because every time I count, I fail. Like there's all these things that people do. What was it that switched from the 90 days, couldn't do it, to now 2 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the 90 days, my whole purpose was to go back to drinking. That was the point. I wasn't trying to be sober and enjoy sobriety. I had no interest in sobriety. I just wanted to cure myself so that I could drink moderately. And I thought if I just took some time off, had a healthy reset, whatever, I would be able to moderate. And that was all I needed. And so the whole time I was just focused on the end goal of drinking again. And the second time, I started with accepting I can't, I'll never drink, even if I take 30 years off and try to drink again, like it might be a little delayed, but I'll go right back to normal. So I accepted, like, I only drink one way, there's no changing it. And that was the difference for me. So until I had that acceptance and like letting go, I wouldn't have stopped for good.
How was it with your husband during all of this? Was he drinking, and was he someone who was encouraging you to stop, or was it something like an unspoken "you have a problem" type thing? How, because I know not many people talk about the partner part.
Yeah, so I'm married to a normal drinker, to one of those jerks that leaves like half a beer and who stops and switches to water. And he used to make me so mad. I could never understand, why can you do that? And I don't do that. And I used to blame him. You should help me. When you switch to water, you should help me. And yeah, but he never said I had a problem. He never um, tried to get me to stop. He never shamed me or like brought up how much I was drinking. He was drinking a lot with me, and he grew up in a culture where like drinking a lot was normal. So he didn't know I was doing anything abnormal or wrong. Um, yeah, so he just thought like when you're an adult, you drink and party and like that's what life is.
Mhm.
And I could do that a little bit, but then the end of the night would always be shame, anxiety, feeling suicidal. And he kept saying, like, if you could just stop feeling like you did something wrong,
Mhm.
then you would
Yeah.
be okay. And yeah, but he was very supportive. He used to stay up with me at night, like when I would wake up and hate myself and all of that for hours. He would stay up with me. So he was very sleep deprived too. And he would try to get me to feel better so I could go to sleep and like assure me, you didn't do anything. Because a lot of my worst drinking was at home.
Mhm.
So I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then when I stopped, he was supportive. He wasn't sure like what to think. Is this going to be forever? Like the 90 days, he knew it's going to be 90 days. Not that I had ever done anything close to that before. But yeah, he was super supportive. And now he drinks around me, but he drinks much, much less. So he was drinking nearly every day because that's what I was doing. And we used to party together. Um, and then when I stopped, like it wasn't fun for him to drink alone. So he just backed off and he didn't want to feel terrible anymore and all of that. So now he very rarely drinks. Like he goes back to that like half a beer thing. Um, and I look at it, I'm like, how? Like, what is that even doing for you? That one beer? Like, how are you satisfied?
And it never triggers you at all, like when the alcohol's around the house or anything like that?
So I asked him not to drink wine around me because wine was my drink. And when people drink wine around me, it, I don't know, it hurts my heart. It makes me feel bad and it makes me feel like you can smell it, you know? And smelling beer or like liquor isn't as big a deal for me because those weren't my drinks. Like I would drink anything, but my preference was wine. So I asked him to not drink wine around me. And then I think I was around 14 months sober. We tried to play around with what that might be like because wine was also his favorite thing to drink. Um, and I think he drank it around me a couple times over like a few months. And then he decided like that he doesn't need to do it because he knows how much it affects me and like he can just drink beer or have a mixed drink or something. But yeah, beer doesn't bother me, but wine does. So when I go out with people and they drink wine around me, that's like a little, it's still a little weird. Like you can smell it, you can see it. Wine is so romanticized, and
Mhm.
that's something that I've had trouble with too.
Yeah, one of my episodes, um, I do delivery for, I shop for some people here in Ventura, and one of the wine bottles broke in my truck, and I had to call my sponsor. Like I was like, I can deliver alcohol, I can do whatever, but that wine bottle broke, and it just set something off of me, and I was like, I missed it. Just like the smell of it was so overwhelming. When you got sober, were there was it a program, or you just were that strong per se? Because I know there's a lot of women. I've for me, I don't. I had to go into a detox program. I had to have be set straight. Like I had to have, I had to have discipline. I had to basically have every privilege ripped of me and feel so powerless to be able to restart. Because I like you, or there was times I tried to stop. I would do the same thing. I would say, oh well, I'm trying to lose weight, or I feel like crap, so I'm not going to drink today. And then, like you said, by the end of the day, I was like over it and ready to drink again. So it never worked for me. What worked for you to get past those 90 days and continue on to almost 2 years?
Yeah, so I didn't do anything actually until 4 months in. So the first 3 to 4 months I just did by myself. So I stopped drinking right before like things got crazy and quarantine happened. And because I stopped in November, it was the holiday season. So there were a lot of happy hours and work parties, and I used to go to those and then like cry afterwards. But I think because I realized like something really bad will happen to me if I keep drinking. Like I will do something bad to me. And that removed alcohol as an option. So like even now when I have a really big trigger, like I had something go on in the beginning of the summer at work that was like the biggest trigger that I've ever had in my 2 years. And my first thought was like let's go, I want to get drunk, like I don't even care. And then I'm like, well, you do care. You can't really do that. So I see it more as like I can't. A lot of people say like I get to be sober or I get to not drink, and things like that, and I see it as I can't do it, I can't. And for me, that's really empowering because I have no choice now. The choice, like maybe it's been long enough, maybe I should go back, like all of that, like internal wrestling with myself doesn't exist anymore. Those thoughts still come up, but I don't like consider going back because I see it as I can't go back. It's not an option. So that helped me a lot in the beginning, and then I started working with a therapist who specializes in like this kind of thing, around 4 months sober, and I still work with her today. So she's helped me. Like when you stop drinking, you have all of these weird feelings that come up, and like you don't know how to handle life, and she's helped me work through all of that and like learn about myself and why I do the things I do, why I think the way I think, and it's been so helpful. And I have done a few meetings off and on. Um I haven't found any like specific meeting that like I've made my like weekly thing, but I've popped in to a few AA meetings, and then I tried one, the Luckiest Club meeting. And I do like it. I remember my first AA meeting, I was like, this is the nicest group of people that I've ever met in my entire I couldn't believe how
Is.
nice everyone
It
was.
is. It's insane. It really is. I'm fortunate. I'm very involved in AA, and I love it. People will say, "How do you like it?" I love it. I love the people. Those are my friends now. Those are. I have my core group, and we joke on social media like get sober and you'll find out who your real friends are. But it's a 100% true, because there's just people who don't even talk to me now, and it blows my mind. I'm like, wow, you knew me for 20 years, and now, like, because I don't drink and you can't invite me to something, you don't want to talk to me. It's very strange. It's like you said, it is very. I was at my sister's house yesterday, and I love being close to my family. I have not lived in the same town as my family ever, and now I get to go and see my nieces and nephews, and we're talking, and sometimes she'll ask me questions and I just look at her and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Right now I just trying to be sober. Like, that's my only answer. And it's very confusing because I don't know anymore. Like, I don't know how to do things. And I'm like, I'm 42. Like, I know how to do life. Like, and I got sober and now I'm like confused all the time. and and it's nice that she understands, and that's, it's so nice to have that support. But it is weird, like, saying that, like I said, like, you just don't know what to do about certain thoughts and feelings, where before I would just drink them away. I would just go, whatever, I've had this day, this thought's going to my mind, and I'm gonna have some wine and then reset tomorrow. And so that part of it is just a lot for me because I'm brand new. I know it will get better and things are getting better over time. When I was looking into your all of your social media, and by the way, I would like to ask you, so you got sober, you're at 4 months, you're starting to see a therapist. At what point did you say, okay, now I'm going to share that with the world? Because I mean, you have over 12,000 followers, you have a podcast, you have your YouTube channel, you have your website. At what point did that start? And what is the difference between you then and you now? Because I know so much happens so quickly in sobriety.
Yeah, so when I stopped drinking, because I work as a biochemist, um, I wanted to understand, like, did I choose this? Did I do this to myself? Am I actually a weak loser? Is something wrong with me? Is my husband just stronger? Is that why he can control himself and I can't? So I started looking into it, because I know where to get that information and I know how to digest and understand that information. So I started reading about it like literally every day. I would read papers about addiction and like why it happens. Um, and around like 7 or 8 months,
Mhm.
I felt that I had learned so much and that it was helping me let go of that. Like, it's my fault. I chose this. I'm a loser. That
Mhm.
I woke up and I was like, I got to tell people this. People
Mhm.
need to know what I know because it'll help them too. And
Yeah.
that's when I decided to share. So I was thinking, like, well, I could start a blog, I could podcast, I could go on YouTube. Um, and like YouTube back then felt very intimidating because I was coming from, I didn't know how to edit, I didn't know how to even record, I didn't know anything. So I was like, okay, I'll start a podcast. That's no one can see me. I can do it when I'm ugly. There's no like pressure. I don't have to do it live. Um, and I Zoom called myself actually because I didn't know how to record. And I just like did a Zoom call by myself, recorded it, and published it the same day. And I've been doing it every Friday ever since. And then I started slowly sharing on social media, and people would ask me to come on their show, and they would ask me more personal questions. So then I thought, like, I don't want to tell the most personal parts of my story on a podcast first. I should share them with like the people that follow me first. So then I started being more personal and like putting it out there. Yeah, but back then I was still very emotional and I would get offended easily. I was struggling with a lot of anger. I struggled with anger for my whole first year. And I don't know, I thought like everybody should be excited for me. All the people that know me in real life, they weren't, just like you said. And now like I'm kind of circling around and I'm like, maybe they are happy for me. Maybe they just can't express it in the way that I wish they could, but it doesn't mean that they think I suck or they don't care. And I'm more like playing devil's advocate with myself. And I'm more willing to put myself out there. I'm more comfortable talking about things. I'm considering like sharing even more stuff and yeah, so it's nice and it is accountability, like you said in the very beginning, because I know, and maybe you feel this with your podcast, if I just like disappeared, people would be like, where's your episode? It's Friday. Where are you?" Um, and that feeling like makes me feel cared about and that I matter and that I'm important and that my work matters. And so that helps a lot too, because it's so easy for those thoughts to come in. Maybe it's been long enough. You weren't that bad, you weren't as bad as blah blah blah. Like maybe you can drink again. Maybe you went overboard with this whole sober thing.
Yeah.
So being public helps me control those thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that because I really think staying sober, the biggest challenge is your mind. You know, it's a
Yeah.
battle of the mind, and that's how I am as well. Like with my kids, you know, I struggle so much with, okay, I'm sober now. Can we start, talking again, and it's like, wait a minute, they watched you be drunk for 18 years. Like you think that you're going to get sober, and they're just going to come crawling back to you, because and I go through anger issues as well. Like one day I'm angry because I'm like, oh my God, I did all this stuff. And then the next day I'm crying and I'm all over the place, but it's all in my mind. And then I have these thoughts of, well, what if I go 2 years or 5 years and my kids are not talking to me? Well, then why not? Then I'm just going to drink. Like, what's the point? But I'm starting to accept that I'm being sober for myself and not for them. And that's a whole new thing too, because, um, I'm brand new. And like you said, being in this sober world where it's like, oh, it's so great. And, enjoying the fact that there is no chaos anymore and there's no craziness, and I'm, I'm still so much in my headspace that, I like you, I deal with depression. So I mean, there were days where I didn't even get out of bed. I just slept. And, my kids or family would be like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'd say, "I don't know. I have no idea. Like I don't know. Like my body and my brain just quit." And now with being sober, like I'm not sleeping all the time. I'm totally awake all the time and I'm dealing with all these thoughts and all these feelings and they hit me like a ton of bricks all the time. And I'm trying to embrace the sober community as well because I need that encouragement. I need that, like you said, keep doing what you're doing, you're helping someone. Or I'll think that, okay, what am I doing? Why am I recording this episode? And then I'll get a text and someone says, you helped me stay sober today. And I'm like, me? Really? Are you sure you're listening to the right podcast? you know? So, I'm still like in that mode. So it's like I look up to people like you and I'm interested, like, were you like me in the beginning? What am I going to be like in 2 years? In the beginning, when you were doing these, like you said, you were just by yourself and now look at you. And so that's exciting. um what has been the biggest resource for you? Like I am new, the things that help me are like looking up to you now that you've been in recovery for 2 years and you are a sober influencer on a social platform. What helps you personally, um, continue your sobriety?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think appreciating what I have, like I've been doing this weird thing and I haven't shared it because I'm like, this is weird, but I'm sure a lot of people are doing it. But I lie in bed at night and I just like appreciate how comfortable my bed is and like how good it feels. And I'm starting to appreciate how good just normal life feels. So a big reason that I drank and that I struggled when I quit was because wine enhances everything, you know, it makes everything better, more fun, more exciting. And regular life is just stable. And that can feel boring. So what I'm doing now is I'm just like appreciating how good normal things feel, like lying in bed. It just feels good. Or like I'm paying more attention. I'm not like chasing things that like are amazing. I'm not chasing excitement. I'm just paying attention to my actual life. And then therapy and all that. Like therapy is amazing. Everybody should go to therapy.
I agree with that. And now it's readily available too. You can, do because of COVID, there's a lot online. There's a lot of resources for people as far as financially. I think a lot of people think, oh well, I can't afford therapy. And there's a lot of people out there that are offering it for really good deals. And I'll have to look into that and put that in the show notes for sure. One of my favorite episodes that you did was about if addiction is a choice. And I feel like that's something that I even get asked, especially by my family, because they have never had a problem. They don't even drink. It's just I come from a completely stable family, which is hilarious that I'm, an alcoholic. And so as far as addiction being a choice, I saw your opinion on it, and I don't know if you can explain it a little bit better, how you feel and if you feel that addiction is a choice for you or not.
Yeah, I think that people who don't struggle with this, they don't understand because they can only understand their own situation, which is they drink and then they decide I'm going to have another drink or they decide I'm going to stop drinking. And that's all they know. And they can't understand how someone could possibly not stop. It just doesn't make sense. And I grew up thinking that too, that it was a choice, that it was something that people did who couldn't deal with their life. And then it happened to me. And that's why like I hated myself so much because I applied all of that to myself. I
Mhm.
was like, well, I can't control myself. So this must mean all of these things. But there's a lot that goes into it. Like alcohol doesn't feel the same for everybody. I think that's the simplest way to put it. Like some people, like my husband who leaves half a beer, alcohol's good for him. It's not great. But when I drink, alcohol is like literally the best feeling that anyone's ever felt for all of time. And it's different. Like if it feels that good for you, why wouldn't you want to drink every day, all day? But if it feels fine, you're not going to chase it around and deal with all the misery that we deal with to keep pursuing it, like all of the hangovers and hating ourselves, affecting our relationships, like our body, like our face looks bad. We might gain weight or be very swollen. And we deal with all of that in pursuit of this amazing feeling. But if it doesn't feel great for you, you're not going to deal with all of that. So there's like a lot of things that come down to it, and there's ways that like your brain is connected. That something I read about this week was that there's one part of your brain that signals you like alcohol feels this amount of good. Alcohol is going to bring these benefits to you, and there's another part that's like, well, hey, when you drink, you got to drive and you got to go to work tomorrow. Last time you drank, you blacked out and embarrassed yourself. And those parts of the brain can have like different strengths. So someone can have like a disruption, and the part that's signaling them about the consequences is really strong. So why would they drink? Because those consequences matter so much to them. But other people, those consequences, like maybe they're just like a little tiny voice. And the other part of the brain that tells us how amazing alcohol is, that part can be really strong. So we know like we could humiliate ourselves, drink and drive, affect our relationships, lose our job, whatever. Like we know it, but we also know like alcohol is the best thing ever. So it's like that. It's not that it feels amazing for everybody, and some people are just like strong. It feels different for everybody. And if it doesn't feel that great for you, you're probably not gonna, drink every day and ruin your life because of it.
It's so true that you say that, because that's the difference between someone who doesn't drink and someone who does, and not understanding. This person looks at this person and goes, why? And this person goes, why? Because this is so amazing. And this person's
Exactly.
going, why? It's not amazing. And so you can't relate. I mean, it's like two people coming from two different countries. They can't relate how they were brought up because they're in two different places. And that's so interesting. Well, this is amazing. I'm excited for all your next episodes. I love following you. Is there any questions that you have for me or anything else that you wanted to share?
I think all I want to say is congrats on almost 6 months. That was probably the weirdest milestone for me. So I'm curious what your experience will be in a couple weeks. But I had to like re-accept
Hmm.
because so much time had passed, things aren't horrible anymore, and I had to like grieve again and like accept again, like, okay, yeah, I'm still doing this is still good. So I'm curious your experience, but you're doing amazing, and your
Thank you.
podcast is really helping people, and most people won't tell you, unfortunately, but they're out they're out there listening.
It's yeah, it is. It's this like 6 month mark, like you said, has been very strange. And um I in a couple podcasts I ago, I explained how I had gotten two tickets right after I got out of rehab, and everything was just still chaotic. And, first 90 days just as a mess. And I went to court, and the judge he lowered my ticket amount like substantially, congratulated me on my sobriety. It was just emotional. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was crying in this courthouse in front of everybody, just realizing like here I am, sober and crying, and just my whole life is just totally different. And so then a friend of mine, she said, there's this type of court that you can go to, and your rehab counts for your ticket so that you don't have to pay for it. And so I called them and applied for it. I had to go through paralegal through like the state. And they said, yeah, you can do it through your program. So I called my rehab center, and they said, oh, well, the only problem is your tickets are after your rehab, but we have a recovery program that you qualify for. So you can go into this recovery program and it counts towards your ticket. So I had a meeting yesterday at my rehab, and I had so many emotions because I was going back to this place where I had to live to get sober. And it was so emotional, and I had all this anxiety, and I didn't know how I was going to be like walking into that place. Okay, the last time I was there, I was scrubbing showers and toilets, and because they have all these women there, and they've got to keep you busy. So you're basically like on a cleaning crew, and I hated it, because I'm like, what am I doing? Like I came here to be sober, not clean the showers, So it was just like so emotional. And I walked in yesterday, and one of my friends who I lived with in the house, she ended up back there. She got out after 90 days in relapse and ended up back there. And I got to see her, which was amazing. And I got to see all the counselors, and it was just amazing because they were just like, oh my gosh, like not very many people come back still sober. A lot of people leave here and then they still go out and they die, or they go back to drinking or go back to their drugs. Or and So I got to meet like some women there, and they were just like, oh, here's Crystal, she was here and she went through the program and she's almost 6 months sober. And these brand new fresh girls, like straight out of detox, are looking at me like that same look I had in my head, like when someone was 60 days. I couldn't even imagine being 60 days. And it was just encouraging to be able to go there and be that example. But it was super emotional for me because I had again had to accept the fact that my drinking became so unmanageable that I had to go through a program. And it was like you said, I get in my head and I go, you're such a failure, and look at where you had to live, and this place is just gross, like this is, you had to be here and literally be locked down in order to get sober because you were so bad. But on the flip side, I have to be grateful that there's programs out there to help people like me who can't do it on their own. I tried doing it on my own for years. I could not do it on my own. And I was at the point where, I crashed my brand new truck. I didn't even drive. I just literally tried to drive and I crashed it. So, like you said, I was willing to deal with a huge consequence because I loved alcohol so much. And by the grace of God, He intervened and I was able to go into a rehab center and get clean. But revisiting it at almost 6 months was very emotional, very, very emotional, because I had to again face my situation and own it, and say, yeah, I was here because of my choices, because I chose alcohol over everything, including my family. And it's really tough, and my, like I said, my, every day that goes by that I don't talk to my daughters, it's like stabbing me, because when I was drinking, it was their fault, and days would go by and, you're so lucky that you had the best mother ever, and now that I'm sober, I'm like, wow, this is going to be a while. you know and so, but yeah, like it's just so funky. And then like I was like, I'm over the meetings, like you get tired of all these things that you have to do now. I'm on the phone with my sponsor every day, and I'm not trying to like put down sobriety. I'm just trying to like be real with the fact that it's just not easy for someone like me. I think about drinking all the time. And I was on Vivitrol when I first went in, and I was on naltrexone. They give it to you in detox. It's like you get medicine whether you like it or not. So that helps with the cravings. And then when I got off Vivitrol, because you're supposed to be on it for a year, I was so tired from the medicine that I got off of it, and which they didn't recommend, because they're like, you need to be on it for a year to help with the cravings. But I was like, I don't want to put this in my body anymore. So as soon as I stopped that, it was like these cravings. So it was like I got sober again for the first time. So it's like I keep reliving these first moments in this first 6 months. And that's why I feel like, these kinds of things are so important, because you're getting two perspectives. You're getting my perspective in the journey that I'm on, and your perspective in the journey you're on, but we're also doing the same thing, is being sober. And that's why I feel like it is detrimental to some people, because they feel like, oh, well, that girl's so pretty on Instagram and she's an influencer, like that's not me. It might be the person who's just listening, and they go, wow, I have suicidal thoughts too, or maybe I need to go into a rehab center because I can't do it on my own. And I love that there's all these dimensions of how to get sober and how to reach out and lean on each other, be able to send a message to you and say, hey, my name is Crystal and I'm new and you are influencing me and I think you're great. And you didn't say, oh, well, I'm Gill and no. you know so it's a big deal. And I think it's really important right now that people who aren't afraid to be anonymous should be out there, and somewhat of a responsibility because there's someone out there like me, like you, and going through the same thing. They're going through the exact same thing and they're wondering, how do I do this? I mean, it's not easy, but it's possible. It is possible. I mean, look at you. It's possible. I go, okay, well, she's got 2 years. I can do this. So, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Anything else you wanted to ask or share?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Just thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for coming on the show. And why don't you, real quick, just tell everybody where they can find you, what your podcast is, website, all that kind of information, and then I'll close out.
Yeah, so if you look up Sober Powered, that's my podcast, my YouTube, my website, my Instagram, my Facebook group. So if you search for Sober Powered, you will find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. And again, Jill is in Boston and it's Sober Powered. This is Sober Onions. And thank you so much to everybody who has been supporting this podcast. If you're wanting to hear more, obviously you can go to the website and go to sponsor or patron and do a donation. It goes to the website hosting, the editing fees, and sober resources as well as marketing. So with that, remember that if I can do it, we can do it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jill.